Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I am your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Tahlia Webster from Yergan Landscape and also My Home Harvest. Tahlia is a horticulturist, garden designer, and maintenance manager at Yergan Landscape. And she's also got a side hustle called My Home Harvest where she does talks and education and workshops on sustainable and organic gardening. It was great talking to her, hearing how she started in the industry because she didn't start her working life in the industry was in something in a different career and then decided that she wanted to get into it. And even though she thought she was making the change late, we did speak about how it's a good industry to get into. You can change into it at just about any age. And also that no matter when you start, you're always learning. And I first caught up with Talia at the Melbourne Flower and Garden Show. She was there as part of the South Australian crew that won the Best in Show this year. So we talk about that. And then she ducked over to the UK to check out the Chelsea Flower Show as well. So we touch on that as well. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Tahlia Webster. Talia, thank you for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is how did you start in the industry?
Well, thanks for having me on board, Joel. That's a great question that I get asked quite a bit. So about just shy of 4 years ago, I joined the industry and I started in a wholesale nursery here in Adelaide. I got the job just on a whim. I went in there with my resume one day after a career pivot, and one thing led to another. So that's where my horticulture journey started.
What were you doing before that?
I actually spent the last 8 years in the wine industry. I'm from the Barossa Valley, so I'm a country girl. I was working as a laboratory technician and working into safety and people culture management. So that's the journey I was on before I joined horticulture. And I guess one of the big pivotal points for me in my career was getting to see that I wasn't getting challenged and I wasn't learning anything new, which is why I decided to commence horticulture.
So were you specifically looking for horticulture or were you just looking for that that was available, so you applied and then you turned out you loved it?
No, so I've always had an absolute love for gardening and plants. As most horticulturists and gardeners have the same story that, your mother and then your grandparents grew up being out in the gardens. That was my exact childhood. So out in the country, growing edibles where we could, picking fruit off the fruit trees. Absolutely always loved being out in the garden, but I guess because I'd made the decision to join the wine industry, I always had that bit of self-doubt that it was maybe a bit too late for me to get into horticulture. But yeah, certainly was always a love of mine, and I can lean on my mum and thank my mum a lot for getting me involved in getting out in the garden after school.
What sort of things were you doing at the wholesale nursery?
Wholesale nursery, we were getting stock ready to get we were getting stock ready to send off to Bunnings and Mitre 10. So it was a pretty basic job, to be honest. I worked alongside this lovely girl, Jess. You'd honestly get microfiber cloths and you'd be cleaning the outside of these 200 and 140 ml pots, popping them on sillages and off they'd go. So the 8 or 9 hour shift there was, in a shed, head down. Yeah, Jess and I would just make the most of it, but I'm still very appreciative of the opportunity, and it certainly, got me thinking about where can I go from here.
And how long were you there for?
That was actually one of the shortest jobs I've had. So I was actually only there for about 2.5 months, maybe just shy of 3 months. From there, I had actually applied at one of my favourite local retail nurseries. They're known to be one of the best boutique nurseries in South Australia. So they specialise in azaleas, roses, camellias, rhododendrons, so all of your acid-loving plants. I was pretty persistent with applying for a position up there, which they eventually got me on board, which was great. And I spent just shy of 2 years up there working as a horticulturist, and that's when I commenced my study in horticulture. So Cert 3 in horticulture at the Urbray campus here in South Australia.
And what nursery was that you were working at?
So that was called Newman's Nursery. I don't know if you've seen them, but they have some absolutely incredible stock. They're up in the Teatree Gully, so just shy of the Adelaide foothills. They've got a very good reputation. They've won quite a few awards for how prestigious the nursery is.
And so were you studying while you were working there?
Yeah, so I just commenced full-time study for horticulture. I made that decision after getting the position at the wholesale nursery. So I was studying 2 days a week and then trying to work 5 days a week. So you can imagine that was pretty full on, but because I made the decision to quit the wine industry, I just wanted to get straight into it and just work as hard as I could to achieve this and hopefully, bring as much happiness and joy as possible. And at that point, I've almost felt like I was already a little bit behind, so I just wanted to, yeah, keep moving forward.
I think one of the good things about the horticulture industry is that you can make a change late. And like you're only young still. Like there's plenty of people who are like top designers who have made a change like in their 40s. So it's
Absolutely,
yeah, I
yeah.
think good thing
It's
about it.
it's a great industry to be in as well. I think if you've got that passion and love for plants, there's no reason why you have to put an age on it or why you have to think, I have to stay in this job I don't like. I think if you love horticulture, just get into it. And even if you're just studying it part time or you're out in your garden on the weekends, it just brings so much joy.
Mm. So what were the type of things you were doing at the nursery? Like were you working in the like counters or behind
Yes,
the scenes?
predominantly, I would be a little bit behind the scenes, but more so behind the counters. So answering phones, dealing with clients. I did quite a bit of stock entry. So when we get new stock in from suppliers, I'd be getting all the barcodes ready and just doing the quality check of the plants, but also to make sure that we got the right quantities. But one thing that I loved and I learned the most when I was out at Newman's is actually having the conversations with clients about what they were growing at home, what plants had or hadn't been successful, and just using the knowledge that I'd learned at the time to be able to recommend plants for particular spots in their garden. And that's one part of the job that I absolutely loved. On top of that, the horticulturists that work out there, some of the older gentlemen, they've been there for 10, 15, 20 years. Their horticulture knowledge is absolutely second to none. And, even listening to them talk on the phone to customers or answering customers' questions, that knowledge that you learn standing side by side with someone is pretty incredible.
And as you got more experienced and more knowledge, did you ever look back on any mistakes that you'd made recommending plants
Oh,
to people?
yeah, of course. I think one thing with horticulture and that gardeners are aware of is that nature's not perfect, and as human beings, we can make mistakes. I don't think there was any major mistakes I've made, but I guess when you're learning, potentially not recommending the right, you might be recommending a shade plant that to put in a full sun position, little things like that. But yeah, never detrimental, I guess.
Yeah, because I started working in a nursery as well at my first foray, and I remember on my first day, someone came in looking for a star jasmine, and
Mhm.
I asked the people who was looking after this, and whereabouts would we find this? That told me which table, so I went down there with her and said, "Hey, this here is it. It's got jasmine on the label, so that's the right one." I said, "Yeah, yeah, it says jasmine polyanthum, which means star jasmine." Hey, I remember that was my very first day. I gave the wrong one, so.
Oh, at least you were confident though.
Exactly. That's what.
I'm sure
That's
they
the
had
thing
a
about.
laugh.
That's the thing about the Latin names as well. You just say it with confidence, and people think you know what you're talking about.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing, even now, Joel, like the Latin name, some of them are so hard to pronounce. It's not until you hear someone else pronouncing it or you're constantly repeating it in your head that it sinks in. But another thing that I used to do at Newman's, working behind the counter, is I used to actually just quiz myself on the plants that clients were buying. So instead of looking at the tag straight away, I would actually be IDing that as I was scanning it, and then I'd check the label afterwards. And even though it sounds so simple, that actually stuck with learning these botanical names and common names so much. That was probably the most beneficial thing I did while I was working out in the nursery.
Yeah, I find it weird sometimes when you hear other people pronounce a name. That's not how I say it.
I know. And then you're like, am I wrong or are you
Yeah,
wrong?
yeah. Like I heard someone the other day say macrophylla, and I say macrophylla.
Oh yeah, sure. I'd say it how you are.
Yeah, because it's a but because I was thinking, oh, well, it's a description, so it's macrophylla, so that's how you say it. But then I thought, but then maybe if you say other words like just in the normal English language, if you said them like that, broken up into syllables, it might sound weird as well. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's not right.
They say to be a really successful horticulturalist, you should study Latin. If you learn to speak Latin, then you'll be absolutely acing the industry.
Yeah,
Something
because
like that.
I do love that how just like descriptive it is. So you can once you understand a lot of it, you can sort of if you have like a multiple choice of plants and you know that they know their botanical names, you've got to
Mhm.
like pick out which one is potentially based on what the name is.
Absolutely, definitely.
So
Um,
yeah, you were there for 2.5 years at that nursery. So where to then?
So from Newman's, so while I was at Newman, sorry, just a key highlight of the story as well is that I started hosting workshops through the Teachery Gully Council. So that was a big step up for me from going from horticulturist then to presenting in front of 40 to 60 people, predominantly promoting organic gardening concepts for suburban blocks, which is something that I feel really passionate about. At the time, I was living on a 1,000 square meter property. And when we got the property, it was just dirt, had a couple of pencil pines, which we removed, and very, very reactive clay soil. So it took about 3.5 years, but we ended up with chickens, beehive, vegetable patch. So the workshops were, I guess, to show people how they can have a similar process at home that, it might take a couple of years, but you can create some incredible soil health at home, and then you can have the abundance of lovely edibles as well.
Was Nutrog involved in one of those talks that you were doing?
Yeah, they were. So Neutrog came on board. I've still got a really good relationship with the rep there. So they had actually supplied tiny little bottles of go-go juice and populate that we were able to give out to the guests that came along. And then also have offerings for customers to come up to the nursery and join the rewards program. So the workshop worked hand in hand in terms of me building a little bit of confidence, sharing the knowledge that I learned at the time, but it was a win-win for the nursery as well, getting customers to come up there and buy some of the Neutron products.
So were you familiar with Craig Castry before
No,
hearing?
but I will say I've listened to the podcast and it was absolutely incredible. He's someone who I would love to meet. He's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, and that's funny. Like you mentioned, the two products that they were giving out, they were two of the ones that he was talking about to use, as well as the chocolate block.
Yes, I 100% agree with him, and that's something that I push with our clients here at Yergan, but we'll get to that. From Newman's Nursery, I actually went and joined the team at Garden Grove, which is a retail nursery as well in the northeast suburbs. They focus more so on supplying landscape materials. And when I joined the team there, I actually was employed as a garden consultant. So that was the step up from going from horticulturist to working in with design work. At that point, I haven't and still haven't studied design. It's just something that I wanted to take my horticulture journey to the next level. When I approached Garden Grove, I basically just told them this idea that I had of running these garden consults, how it would look. Yeah, they created the position for me, which was absolutely incredible. When I worked as a garden consultant out there, clients would book in 1 hour consults with me. They would have done a little bit of homework, so measuring up their back garden space that they wanted to design or implement new plantings to, and then we'd spend that hour together selecting the plants. I'd give them a very basic roadmap, and then we'd also talk about plant health, soil preparation, and how to care for these plants on an ongoing basis.
And was that a more general nursery, like they sold sort of they didn't specialize in certain plants?
Yeah, no, a lot more general plants. I would say that I would describe them as more a landscaping nursery. So that was incredible to go from this beautiful boutique nursery then out, into the big wide world where they've got every landscaping material that you can possibly imagine, and it's very much the nursery is focused on DIYers. So
Uh,
yeah, probably a different clientele, but yeah, very, very interesting position to work in. And yeah, so grateful for them to give me the opportunity as well to, yeah, do these garden consults.
and was that intimidating at all doing those consults to start with?
At the start, I guess so. I mean, I like to think I'm a, really honest person. So I think the first couple that I ran, I just let people know, hey, I'm a little bit nervous. I've just joined the team. I'm going to be running through this garden consult, but people are so lovely. I think the more honest that you are, and you just let people know how you're feeling, that they realize that you're just human and you're just doing the best you can. The first few that we did, and we continued to have incredible feedback from that. And it also skyrocketed our sales as well at Garden Grove. So there are a couple little consults and designs that I put through that the clients actually bought every single plant on the spot. You're talking a couple $1,000s worth of plants just walking out the door. So it was a win-win for the nursery, but it was a huge win for my confidence and self-esteem, especially, moving into designing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good when the person who's hiring an expert trusts the expert as well. So I imagine you'd have some people who came in and they know a little bit about plants, so then they're kind of second guessing a lot of the things that you'd be suggesting.
Absolutely. And a lot of the clients out there, they'd been shopping there for years and years, so they had a really good relationship with other team members. And I think, if you've got a supportive team around you, that any lack of confidence does dissipate as well. So yeah, that was incredible. I didn't actually work there that long, maybe about 8 months, I think. During that time, Steve Neal, who is the nursery manager, he and I held quite a few workshops which sold out. At Garden Grove, they have this beautiful cafe upstairs, and it's got a projector, so it's perfect for hosting workshops. We were talking about permaculture principles again on suburban blocks and what the home gardener can do to improve the soil quality and condition at home. So things like, recommending cow manure, compost. We were showing people how to make their own worm farms, talking about sowing seed and how important that is, and just building people's confidence. So we sold 3 of those workshops completely out back to back. So that had 50 people in all of them. And then we continued to have requests for more workshops, but we decided to start focusing on offering a new service instead.
Yeah.
So
What
that
was
was,
the new service it's split to?
so just my apologies, doing different talks. So I think people were getting so excited about talking about permaculture in the home garden, but we'd promoted that quite a bit. And because I'd done, a couple of workshops at the previous nursery, I'd written an article for SA Life about it. And then we'd done a couple of workshops at Garden Grove. We're just excited to talk about a new topic and just keep working on that. So we ran quite a few workshops out at the nursery together, which again was incredible. The other exciting thing that happened for me while I was at Garden Grove is I got a call up from my good friend Aaron Daniel, who's on the horticulture committee for the Adelaide show. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Adelaide show here, Joel. Every year in the Gordon Pavilion, they put a very small horticulture display together, and that has things like flowering perennials, display gardens. The TAFE students come in and put displays together. But Aaron gave me a call and said one of our designers has pulled the pin last minute to put a little 6x3 garden together. Is there any possibility that you'd be interested? So that was a great invitation opportunity for me. So I spoke with my manager, who jumped on board straight away. So we had 2 weeks to put this garden together. And from that point, the garden itself, it turned out fine. It was a great representation of Garden Grove and the products that they have. I wouldn't necessarily describe it now as a show garden. It was more of a display. But from there, that's actually where I met Jason and the team at Yergan.
So they were doing one there as well, were they?
Yeah, so Jason's team actually took out Best in Show that year. So that was at the end of 2023. They'd put a beautiful burnished bench in their 6x3, and then they had beautiful tropical plants and bluestone steppers. Jason's garden was a real standout that year. So the garden that I put together, it was just a good representation of the nursery, but also a great opportunity to meet other people like Jason in the industry, to start talking about who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's the best thing about those type of events is meeting the other people that are there doing it as well, who love what they do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that, I think just having connections in the industry goes a really long way as well. And just being passionate, putting yourself out there and just having the chat, really.
And did Malcolm from Desert Flower win that last year as well?
Yeah, so Malcolm came on board last year. He did a 6x3, and he also took out the best feature for the 6x3s. So this year he's coming in to do the feature garden, which is what the Yergan team did last year. So it's a 6x6 meter area, much bigger.
Yeah, right. So is there a lot of those gardens that are there?
No, so they've just started. So in 2023, it was the first year that they had actually offered these display gardens at the show to try and build momentum for the horticulture industry and the nursery industries. There's only 4 of them in there, and there was no feature garden. So Sophie Thompson has quite a large garden in there, which she put some incredible displays together. She's got chicken, she's got her edibles, mixed in with Mediterranean plantings. Last year, they did the 4 6x3s and offered the feature garden to Jason because they'd won the previous year. And same thing for next year. So because Malcolm's team won, they'll be doing the feature garden, which is really exciting. So Yergan's going back in to do one of the smaller display gardens. Again, it's the third year in a row.
Because I reckon, because Tim Harper from Space Capsule did something, I don't know if it was there, but they did yeah, I don't know if there's some other event where they did a display garden that would have been maybe 10 years ago.
Oh,
So,
that's really cool. I'm not familiar with it, sorry.
yeah, because we did a boutique garden with them at the garden show 2016 or 17, and they did one the year after, I think. So with sandstone.
You build momentum when you start doing the show gardens, don't you?
Yeah, we started to get addicted to it.
Yeah, that's right.
So then, when did you start working with Jurgen? Like, what did that sort of start from meeting him there?
Yeah, so I met Jason at the Adelaide show and the rest of the Yergan team. At the Adelaide show, I actually presented on the horticulture stage, again promoting organic gardening concepts, and Jason actually came along to one of those talks. I showed him quite a few of the really basic designs that I'd done at Garden Grove, and we just spoke in detail about where I'm heading for my career. And I was actually offered a position at Yergan as a horticulture specialist, which is really exciting. So my job has evolved quite a bit in the last year and a half since I joined the team. But yeah, going from then retail nurseries into working for a company that does high-end landscapes, it was a huge step up for me.
Yeah. Actually, something I forgot to ask Jason last week, which you may or may not know the answer on. Do you know where the name Jurgen came from?
Yeah, so Yergan was actually his football nickname. Jason's surname is Schultz. So, being German, Yergan goes hand in hand. I think it just stuck. But it's a pretty interesting name, to be honest.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask where the name came from, so he could come up with a really cool story. But yeah, it certainly catches people's eye.
Yeah, it's unique.
It is, definitely.
So how was that there going from working on more residential sort of DIY gardens to
Mhm.
working on some of the top gardens in SA?
To be honest, initially incredibly overwhelming. It was exciting, but some of the gardens that I saw in the first week that Yergan had designed and constructed was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I'd obviously only ever been in nice suburban properties, but nothing to this extent. But I felt really excited. So when I joined the team, my role was to develop all of the planting palettes and planting concepts for Jason's designs, which was incredible, absolutely amazing. It's been, yeah, fascinating since I joined.
And have there been plants where he's like, no, we don't like that plant? Like,
Oh,
'cause
definitely, yeah.
some people hate certain plants.
Yeah. Yeah, so when I started, I put together a planting palette, and I think currently it has just over 500 plants on it. And these were some of my favourite plants that I've learnt since I started my horticulture journey, and there were quite a few on there which got marked as a no, we will not be having that.
What was some of them?
um, oh, you put me on the spot. There was a couple of succulents in there I think you didn't like, and a couple of perennials. Oh, I'd have to send you a message and let you know. I'll have to go back and look at the planting palette. But yeah, there was a couple of things in there which I think maybe a bit too vibrant for the designs that we put together here at Yergan. And yeah, I get quite excited about any plant I come across.
And just you say, has it been a year and a half that you've been there?
Yeah, a year and a half now, which is pretty amazing. And during that time, so I started off as a horticulture specialist. Within 3 months of joining the team, I started our garden maintenance. So that's been absolutely massive for me. I've never started a small service like that within a company. So Jason, certainly massive credit to him for giving me the opportunity to do that. Because I've spent, quite a few years maintaining my own garden and offering care advice to customers out in the nursery industry. It's just nice to be able to use that information that I have to be able to help our clients at Yergan. So when I started developing the maintenance service, it was pretty slow to get off the ground, to be honest. And the idea behind that is to offer it to our clients, so gardens that we've designed and built, which is really nice to keep it all in-house. And that means that we're able to maintain these gardens as they were intended to be designed, because I'm sure you're aware it can be a little bit disheartening to go out to a client's garden that you've worked so hard to design and then the upkeep of the garden's just being let go. So this service works really well.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that Ian Barker mentioned on his chat was one of the benefits of doing that is being able to get advertising photos out of it because you're there all the time and seeing it.
Absolutely,
So,
definitely. And that's helped a lot. We're at a point now, Joel, because it's been it might have been about roughly 14 months of having garden maintenance now. The gardens are at their peak. Although it's winter time and everything's been cut back, these gardens now, after having their soil improved for that period of time, the plants are booming. It's amazing. So it's going to be absolutely great for photo opportunities as well. And a massive credit to Ian as well. We had quite a few Zoom calls together, and he imparted quite a bit of knowledge on how he started his garden maintenance business that he was able to share with Jason and myself. So yeah, that was really incredible and special of him to do that for us.
and you're getting a lot of Neutron products onto your gardens.
Yeah, so Nutrog supply pretty much all of our products that we have at
All
the
right.
moment, which is great. So we have a little workyard, which has pallets of our fertilizer, the go-go juice, populate, which is, yeah, wonderful. We just buy everything in bulk and only have to do an order about once or twice a year at this point.
Yep.
I am with Craig Castro though, that I want to start trying to implement the care for the soils a little bit more and actually backing off on fertilizing. Here in SA, we've got the most hydrophobic reactive clay soils. So when you're putting these pellets down, unfortunately, if we don't see rainfall and you've got drip line irrigation, these pellets just aren't breaking down. So I really want to start looking at using more probiotics and liquids for the fertilizer.
It's crazy. Like I'm going to be doing that as well. Less fertilizer and more,
Mm,
less feeding the plants and more feeding the soil.
absolutely.
It
I
makes
it's
sense.
way forward.
Even with the even when irrigating, you don't want to just be watering at the plant's root ball. You want to water everywhere around it, so then the roots will go everywhere.
Absolutely. And it just builds a much healthier plant. And then if you're watering around the canopy of the plant, you're increasing the microbes, the healthy bacteria, and even introducing things like worms and slavers into the soil, which are then going to help aerate. So it's just this beautiful domino effect. Once you can get in the habit of actually putting these probiotics down, I think that you're going to reap the rewards for much longer time than fertilizing.
And so you wouldn't have been at Yergan long, and then they started talking about the garden show build that you did this year, I assume.
Yeah, yep, yeah. It's been just one awesome opportunity after another, to be honest, Joel. So yeah, we've got garden maintenance off the ground. We've got a couple of awesome horticulturists working in the team now that care for our gardens, which is great. And yeah, shortly after joining the team, the invite came from Rob about the MIFGS garden, which, as Jason mentioned, it was too good of an opportunity to turn down. And I'm just so grateful to have been, yeah, part of the process and, yeah, part of the journey. It's something that I never thought that I would have achieved, and particularly being part of so early on into my horticulture journey.
And you were doing a lot of the social media stuff as well, which looks pretty impressive. Have you
Yeah,
done much of that before?
I actually ran the social media at Newman's Nursery. So my little social media account that I have called My Home Harvest, I absolutely love photography, especially landscapes and plants. I've always had a bit of a knack for that. So my time at Newman's, I took over their social media, Instagram account. I did the same at Garden Grove and then same at Yergan, and then obviously got to have that opportunity as well for MIFGS. So yeah, I was out taking photos with our camera and my iPhone and just trying to document the garden developing as much as possible.
And how was the experience of doing that garden show?
Oh, it was incredible. It was, yeah, incredible collaboration between the three landscaping teams and lots of excitement, lots of stress. Yeah, it's amazing. I can't believe how quickly it came and went. Felt like we had months and months with the planning and behind the scenes, particularly what, the guys in the office at Jurgen did was pretty amazing. But yeah, to actually get to the point of, the first day training in that structure and seeing the pond place down those Versi jacks. It was just incredible. I remember looking over at Rob and he was just absolutely beaming.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive seeing that go in such a big body of water and to get it perfectly level.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's like Jay said, it's one of those gardens where you just got one shot to get it right. Like, even sending everything 800 kilometers from home, having that all fabricated and put together. I think people don't realize how much work goes in behind the scenes to make that possible. It's not just the guys that are working on site. Yeah, it's months and months worth of planning that go into it. But yeah, we're so grateful to have been part of it and absolutely so proud of everyone involved, and the results were awesome.
Yeah, well, it's one thing to have built a garden that you're proud of, but to actually win best in show and the gold is and the best plant life when you consider all the plants
Yeah,
coming from SA.
absolutely. And it was a massive credit to Carl and Sarah who own Heine's Nursery. Absolutely huge for them to, that we got this best use of plant life, and the majority of plants had come from their nursery. So it was nice to represent South Australia, and just, yeah, it's something that everyone can be proud of, moving forward.
And then just recently, I saw you over in the UK checking out Chelsea as well, seeing what sort of site you might be going to there.
Yeah. Oh, well, who knows, Joel? Yeah, Chelsea. Have you been before? Sorry.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Oh, you've got to put it on your list. It was absolutely amazing. The designers that we met over there, even the public that we met over there. Oh, the people are just amazing, Joel. I was talking to this one guy, and he actually maintains three of Pete Oldhoff's gardens. So he was from the Netherlands. He could only speak very broken English, but he was showing me photos on his phone of some of Pete Oldhoff's gardens. So even making connections like that, oh, just amazing.
And so you went to other countries as well while you were there?
Yeah, so we went up to Cotswold, which is northwest of London. I'm known for its famous limestone Cotswold. So that was amazing. Not very garden focused up there. It was more so village hopping. But nevertheless, it was gorgeous. We went down to the Wisley Botanic Gardens, again, where we looked at Pete Oldhoff's new garden display that he's implemented there. It's only about a year old, so it's still got a little bit to grow in, but I think in a few years' time it'll be pretty impressive. We went to Kew Gardens, Botanic Gardens. Absolutely incredible. We didn't have enough time there, unfortunately, and I think during the day we would have clocked up over 25,000 steps. They have over, sorry, 50,000 plant species just in Kew Gardens, but they have quite a few propagation classes and workshops that they hold there for children. So there's quite a few school groups in there, and yeah, that was amazing. Then we went down to south of France, so down to Ventabren, which is in Provence, and again that was more so village hopping. We looked at a few gardens and then back to Paris and then home. But it was an incredible trip, and I cannot recommend Chelsea Flower Garden Show enough to anybody who is a green thumb or interested in gardens.
And did you learn, like, is there anything specific that you learned that you're going to implement, like certain plants or anything that you can use here?
The challenging thing is that here in SA, to be honest, over the last year, it's so unbearably dry that even some of the Mediterranean plants that we use in a lot of our gardens are struggling. So versus the plants over in the UK, it just doesn't get as hot over there. So I certainly got some really nice ideas for bringing in new plants to our planting pallets, but it's just a matter of if we're able to get them and if they would actually be successful in the garden. So the big thing for Yergan at the moment is actually looking at our irrigation systems and how we're able to get a lot more water on the gardens during those hot periods, because the hydrophobic soil is just so hard to combat with your soil weather.
Are you using drip irrigations or sprays for the garden beds?
We use drip irrigation, but we are hoping to change it to sprayers. I think you can get a lot more moisture into the soil with sprayers, because that drip irrigation, if you've had days and days of dry weather, it's only pooling out to a very small area, and a lot of plants aren't seeing any water.
Yeah. Have you got a certain planting style that you like if you could choose for your own garden or
Mm. I have a couple of designers which I like to follow quite closely, and I enjoy their styles. And one of them is actually your mate, Ashley James. I
haven't heard of it.
not anyone I know. His planting style I'm very fond of, and same with Tim Pilgrim. So I like that, the these themes look like they're almost wild. They look like the plants have evolved there, they've developed, and they're meant to be like that, without the gardens getting too wild and woolly. So, in my own garden, it would be so lovely to have implement plants that are, moving in the wind, grasses, soft grasses and perennials, and then having a little bit of structure from spears or architectural structure from succulents. But I'm certainly drawn to edibles in the garden and soft perennials.
And with the edibles in the garden, are you sort of doing them in a section, or are you trying to just have them scattered around as just like treating them like a normal plant?
Yeah, I like the idea of them being scattered around, but I think there's also a time and a place for that in a garden, and it can become quite messy. So in the planting designs that we do at Yergan and that I have done separately, I actually like to keep the edibles contained. So whether that's in the ground, in its own dedicated area, or in vegetable beds, I think it's nice to keep them separate. But there's certainly, gardens where it works really, really well to mix your perennials and your edibles together.
Yeah, after having Christian Douglas on, so he's like the food forward movement, kind of getting edibles all the way
Mhm,
through the garden. The job we were doing, there was someone else had done most of the planting design, and they had a hedge of buxus, and the
mhm,
garden bed it was in, like it was a raised garden bed, but it was it was like a maybe 800 mil wide garden bed. It was just one row of buxus in there.
mhm.
So I chucked in a row of strawberries as well to hopefully spill over the wall.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
would have been like 7 or 8 meters long, just a row of strawberries. And the
Mhm.
clients have loved it because, like, I didn't tell them, I just put it in there
I
and
love
they can.
that.
And
Oh,
yeah, it's worked out perfectly.
that's really, really nice. In the current client's garden in West Croydon, we've implemented this raised Corten veggie bed, which is behind one of the burnished concrete benches, and that's got a couple of ornamental plants in it, but the ground cover that's spilling over is memory herb. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
No,
It's
a bad memory.
it's got these tiny, juicy green leaves, and tiny white flowers that mimic a pratia. It
Uh,
spills over quite a vast area and it looks absolutely gorgeous. So put it on your list, memory herb. It doesn't taste good. It is an edible, but it looks gorgeous.
yeah. And with the planting style of Jurgen before you arrived, were they kind of similar to what you kind of liked anyway?
They're actually Jason's planting style was a little bit different to what my preferred planting style is. So his gardens are quite unique. So I wouldn't describe Jurgen as having its own planting design because every property and every client is so different. With saying that, a lot of the gardens that I saw, they've got beautiful manicured buxus balls and tutrium spheres and deciduous trees. So things like crepe myrtles and Japanese maples. So a lot of his gardens were green focused, which looked gorgeous. But I will say, since I joined the team, a lot of our gardens now are perennial focused, which is really nice. And also just looking at putting that season, adding the seasonal change into clients' gardens. So thinking long term, what's the garden going to look like in 10, 15 years? But then how do you add that seasonal interest throughout the year? So it's been really fun. Jason and I work incredibly well together, and he's very much a yes man to these perennials. So I think he's excited to see Jurgen evolve his planting style, but then also just elevate these gardens, take them to the next level.
Yeah, I think they work well with the climate that you got going as well in SA because it's a lot drier, so they work well for that.
Oh, absolutely. And things like verbena, salvia, catmint, all of those are that hardy that they can go periods where it's a little bit drier. You still got to be on the ball, but yeah, you can certainly get a really beautiful garden here in SA, with the right care. And it's nice just to have a bit more colour, break up the green.
Yep. So what's your role at Jurgen now? Like you're still doing the planting plans, but is there
Yes, still doing planting plans. So my role at the moment is garden designer and garden maintenance manager. So, like I mentioned before, we've now got two horticulturists who run our garden maintenance. And one of them in particular, he's incredible. So he's really got that leader mentality, and I think he'll be able to help us take it to the next level. And what that means is I'll be a little bit less involved with maintenance and more office focused, but also spending more time with the client. So Just working on green spaces at the moment. So at Yergan, we use Autodesk CAD. So we went from designing and developing these planting palettes to now Jason will design the spaces and do all the hardscaping, and then I'll pick CAD up and start working out our planting layout, quantities, and then refining that so I can send the order off to the supplier, and then working with the guys to lead that planting on site. So I've been doing that for maybe just shy of a year now, but really getting in a swing of things. And CAD was also something that I never thought that I would be able to get the knack of. And I'm certainly just touching the surface at the moment with the basics. But yeah, it's a pretty incredible tool.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I've been using it for more than 20 years, and there's a lot of things that it could do, but I've got no idea how to do. But I just use it for what you need to do.
Yeah, and I will say it's great for getting plants absolutely spot on. So over the last year, quantifying these plants through CAD, we've got the exact right amount of plants coming on site. The guys have a very simple plan to follow. So it helps eliminate error, compared to what I did at Garden Grove, where you're sketching something out, because those dimensions aren't quite accurate. There's a lot more room for error. So yeah, I'm a big fan of CAD. Definitely would recommend it to anyone in the landscape or horticulture industry that then wants to start working in design. Makes things a lot easier.
And what's the version of it that you're using?
At the moment, we're using Autodesk CAD LT for Mac. I think I just yesterday installed the 2026 one, which I don't know. I think they're changing the subscription and making it a little bit harder, but yeah.
Yep.
What one are you?
Do you know, do you have any long-term plans that you looking to work towards, or things you want to do more of?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big dreamer, and sometimes a little bit too optimistic. I've got one of those personalities that works either for me or against me, where I think that I can do absolutely anything. At the moment, long-term plans for me is to keep working on promoting My Home Harvest, which is about sustainable and organic gardening. I've actually been working on developing a heap of ebooks over the last 12 months. And that's just wanting to impart my knowledge with other young people in the industry to try and build momentum. The ebooks aren't focused at the beginner gardener, more intermediate gardeners. From there, I'd like to get back in a position of hosting workshops and talking about, design and how you can get into the industry. And just trying to build as much momentum as possible, to be honest, Joel.
Yep. So you're still doing talks with that as well? That's the plan?
Yeah, so the last talk I did was just over a year ago. The start of this year has been so busy with what we did at MIFGS, going to Chelsea, and now getting back in a swing of things. But we are putting a small garden together at the Adelaide show. So I'm hoping to present on the horticulture stage this year. Yeah, to talk about, sustainable gardening, improving soil, picking the right plant for the right spot. It's great. It's great to get around the community and see other people just showing an interest and a love for horticulture.
Yep. Yeah, that's what it's about. It's almost like that's similar to when you're working in the nursery. You get people who come into a nursery usually passionate about what they're doing, like they love being there.
So, and they're only there because they want to be there.
Exactly, yeah. And it's good also when you're doing those talks, they're actually interested in what you're talking about, so they're passionate about that as well. So it's good when you're interacting with those people.
Absolutely, and it's so nice when you're doing a talk to the public and you can see people taking photos, taking notes. They want to talk to you after the presentation. And that's one thing that I really want to keep doing for myself as well, to build my confidence, but then to just keep reiterating the knowledge that I've learned, because I think it's a great test to yourself when you get up and present on stage, that you've got to be very confident about what you're talking about. And if not, great thing about horticulture is that you just keep learning. You're never going to know every plant or every technique, but that's what I think makes it so special and so exciting.
Yep, absolutely. Last question for you, Tahlia, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
I would absolutely love to recommend Nikki King. She's a good friend of mine, an incredible garden designer. She focuses on creating biodiverse gardens, but she also has actually started hosting her own workshops and garden design classes. So I think she'd be an incredible spin-off after this conversation.
Is she got a business name, or is it just her
Yes, she just works under her own name. So Nikki King Garden Design.
Yep, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time to come on and on a weekend and share your story. But thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you so much for having me on board. I really appreciate it.